Hey y'all, it's Nina. This is part 3 of the Angie Dodge murders. And of course, as we left off on part 2, you know that Chris Tapp is now sitting in prison. He sits there for 20 years, so I'm not going to try to talk to you and talk through 20 years of him being in prison. So I have clips of what went on the next 20 years. And at the end, of course, he gets out, and I'm hoping that you will come back for number 4, because number 4 is really, really, really sad. It's really sad. And the way that he becomes the victim, and well, of course you already see how he became the victim. I mean, they took 20 years of his life, and Carol Dodge worked 23 years to find the murderer of her daughter. And this is going to show so many aspects. Come back to when we think about the Idaho 4, because you think of, the people that are with Koberger, that he's not guilty. They've got the wrong man, and nobody wants to listen. And then you've got the ones that say he's guilty and nobody wants to listen and everybody wants to fight. And crooked police, I don't know anything about that, but people say there's crooked police, So, but then in number 4, we're going to get into the IGG. And keep in mind that Chris is the only person in the world that has ever been exonerated from IGG. So, as much as we want to talk about the IGG as far as Idaho 4 and all that goes, please remember that the IGG is what freed a man from prison. So think of it as doing good also. So I'm going to put these clips, and I hope to see y'all on number 4. I will be doing a lot of talking on number 4. And it may be a little longer video, so I hope y'all come back for number 4. This is Warning Label Discussions, and this is Nina, and I really do appreciate it if y'all have watched just a little bit of these. And there's no way that I could tell the whole story in 4 videos. So Stranger Than Fiction is a lot of where I'm getting my clips from. And I think it's like, oh my gosh, I think it's like 15 different videos. And so if you want to do the research and stuff, it's definitely a story that's worth researching. And thank y'all for everything. And I'm sorry I was so late for getting this out.
Stars of the universe of criminal justice is the idea that nobody voluntarily confesses to a crime she or he didn't commit.
I look at Angie's case, and in 23 years I've been trying to put this puzzle together, and the center's missing.
Like any good plot twist, Carol Dodge does something few would expect.
If I did anything know about this, I would say, but I do not know.
In 2008, she tracked down Chris Tapp's new defense lawyer, John Thomas.
One day after court, Carol Dodge stops me, and I thought, oh no, this is not going to be good. I'm representing Chris Tapp. Her daughter was brutally murdered. Carol told me that I needed to watch the videotapes of Chris's interrogations, and that she thought that Chris Tapp was innocent.
I don't know what the hell you guys want from me.
There were 9 separate interrogations.
It was hours and hours of polygraph sessions.
Unless you want to just tell me everything right now. I've been trying to. I wish I could.
Me, in my bright mind, if I help him, I can help him solve this, and I can become a hero, or I'm a good guy, or whatever it is.
Okay, we're just going to jump right back into it here.
Law enforcement claims that Chris volunteered statements that indicated that he knew about the rape and murder.
But when John Thomas viewed the tapes, He believed that the police wittingly or unwittingly reveal details of the crime.
It wasn't just stab once or slice once. There was a lot of aggression.
They ask him questions about, okay, well, where did she live?
Did she like being on the corner, or was it?
And they say, no, Chris.
It was a floor.
They ask him, which room was she killed in?
Where do you cigarette? In the bedroom, or in the living room, or in the kitchen, or in the hall? In the living room. It was in the living room. Yeah.
And they go, no, Chris, it's over here.
She was killed in the bedroom.
However, at Chris's trial, the detectives testified that they had evidence that proved Chris was lying to them, and that Chris always knew where Angie lived and where she was killed.
Separately, Carol Dodge, along with John Thomas, reached out to an expert in wrongful convictions to review the interrogation tapes.
Honestly, I just don't know. I do.
This was the first time that a victim's mother called me and said, I've got real concerns that the man who killed my daughter is innocent.
Drizzen created a report that would later be used in Chris Tapp's appeals.
You know an accessory?
It's the polygrapher that suggests to Chris he could get the gas chamber for his role in this crime.
They get life imprisonment in the gas chamber.
It's clearly the kind of threat that can lead people to give false confessions.
The Innocence Project, an advocacy group for the wrongfully convicted, also joined Chris Tapp's defense team.
I think that people would be shocked to know that the police can lie to you. The police can say that they have evidence in the case that actually doesn't exist.
There's no doubt in my mind right now. You gave me blood.
Although police tactics like these are legal, Drizzen argued in his report that detectives took them too far.
In my opinion, the polygrapher wasn't there to test the accuracy of Chris Tapp's stories on the lie detector.
The charger tell me, saying to me, you were there.
He was there to tell Chris that he failed the lie detector test to get Chris to change his story to meet their evolving theory. That Ben Hobbs killed Angie Dodge, and that Chris Tapp somehow participated in the crime.
When I first took office in January 2015, the Bonneville County Prosecutor's Office began the search for and the hiring of an independent investigator to look into Chris Tapp's conviction. It became pretty clear that a lot of the information that Tapp had was provided to him by law enforcement, and there were concerns by our investigator regarding statements made by the polygrapher during the polygraph examinations that were coercive in nature.
However, the independent investigation concluded that Tapp was present when Angie was attacked and stabbed, but cast doubt on his confession regarding his personal involvement in her death. Drizzen believes that Chris looked guilty because of the psychological tactics that he says detectives used.
I mean, that's my thing. If I was there, I'd remember it, wouldn't I?
One thing that interrogators often do is they attack a suspect's confidence in their own memory.
I wasn't there. Wait, I think you're sounding to me like I was there.
The police told me a few times that if there was something that horrific, you would definitely hide it and it'd go in your subconscious.
It's just like me. On some of the little stuff that we see out on the streets, my mind shuts down on me because I don't want to remember it.
I started second guessing myself during all this. I started to not believe in myself or who I was.
I don't know, because right now everything I've been saying, what I think is right in my head, it's been wrong.
It causes a crisis of confidence in the suspect. The suspect doesn't know whether those memories are real or they are imagined. You can feel the stress on him, and it's really hard to watch.
You were there, you're the one that held her down, but Ben asked you to try to help. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
I believe this confession was coerced, and in my opinion, with sophisticated interrogation techniques, any one of us could find ourselves confessing to a murder we didn't commit.
Did she say anything?
Help.
You heard her say help? Okay.
I just didn't do nothing, I promise.
You think you're doing the right thing and you just want to help them. I was so scared and I just kept trying to do whatever they wanted. I kept trying to answer their questions. I wanted to go home.
When a jury hears a defendant say, "I did it," it's almost as good as a conviction right then and there. It is extraordinarily hard for juries to understand that somebody would confess to a crime that they didn't commit.
I can say, I think without any equivocation, that had Mr. Tapp not confessed, there would have been no conviction in this case.
At least two of the detectives who were involved claim that they never gave Chris any information, that all of the incriminating details that he came up with, he had simply volunteered.
How much will he serve before he's eligible for parole?
It will certainly be at least 30 years, so it will still be a very, very long time.
We reached out to the original detectives on this case, who have since retired, but they didn't respond. Ultimately, the prosecutor issued his own report in 2016. He determined that the statements Tapp's attorneys said were coerced were similar to statements Chris made to acquaintances.
The question for me was whether there was new, clear and convincing evidence of innocence. There simply was not.
Carol Dodge is looking at what the jury never saw. She is seeing the fullness of this interrogation.
She realized that Chris Tapp didn't know anything about this crime, that he'd been wrongfully convicted, and that whoever killed her daughter, he was still out there.
I don't know what to say other than I'm grateful for this moment. It's been a long time coming. That's all I have to say.
Did you think this day would come?
I worked really hard to get it to come. I've worked on this for 7 years. Took me a long time. 13 years I was very, very angry at Chris. And I started studying forensics. Oh, excuse me. And once I looked at some of the physical evidence, I called Greg Hampikian and at Boise State, and he said, "I really can't talk to you because Chris has written to the Idaho Innocence Project." And I go, "This isn't about Chris. Just explain something to me." And it was in regards to the hair that was found at the crime scene. And so he said, "Oh, I can answer that." And I said, "Listen to this statement." And I read him the statement, and the statement said the hairs are similar to the same as the victim. And I said to Greg, life is an either or. Either they're hers or they're not. And so he asked me where the hairs were, and we located them in the evidence locker and found out that in the very beginning that the hairs had been sent to the Idaho State Lab, but our facilities could not test the hair without a root. So they were sent back and got put back into the evidence locker, and they sat there for 13 years. And finally, they sent them to a lab back east, and they were tested, and they came back to be the semen donors. So that was the start of it. And then I studied the skin cell testing. I studied the MVAC testing that was done on Angie's case. And I am the one that studied the phenotype typing that they just did the composite drawing on. And each and every time that I study new technology, I'm grateful that they listen to me and they do the testing that's available in today's technology.
And you've been fighting for this day for a decade now. And in an hour, Chris Tapp will walk free.
Yes. Chris Tapp A week and a half ago, they were offering him a ridiculous deal, and he was just moments away from signing it. And it was on a Saturday, 2 weeks ago, and I was on the phone with Danny Clark, and I said, "You got to be kidding." He goes, "What do you want?" I said, "The man needs to be set free. Free and not being strapped with a rape charge and without a ball and chain wrapped around his neck and having to serve probation." And he said, "It's not going to happen." And today, we're going to witness it happening. And I'm very grateful. Chris is scared. I talked to him on the phone last night, and he's very scared. And I just hope that one day people will support finding Angie's true killer. He's somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know that he's even still alive. But technology will find him one day.
Do you worry with Chris walking free today that this case may be forgotten?
No. No, I won't let this case be forgotten. You know, things change in the Idaho Falls Police Department. We've gone through, I don't know how many detectives in 20 plus years. We've gone through 3 police chiefs now that McBride is going to retire. We've gone through 4 prosecutors. I've gone through a lot, and I know this case inside and out. And I won't let her be forgotten, and I'll just continue on. One thing that I have to say is that the Idaho Falls Police Department is still the active investigative department. Everything has to go through them. But if they're willing, you know, as long as the people are on board. Officer McKenna, hopefully he won't retire for a couple of years, and he is very familiar with the case. Officer Hoffman, that just retired, worked on Angie's case for 5 years. It's all going to be okay, guys.
Bonneville County Courthouse today, a free man. And the person who has been fighting most for his innocence, Angie Dodge's mother, Carol. She took the stand this afternoon and says she is glad that Chris is a free man. Hand in hand to a crowd of cheers, Carol Dodge and Chris Tapp walk down the steps of the Bonneville County Courthouse moments after Tapp is released from custody.
Yes! Freedom!
I need to prove everything to everybody that I was worth something and I can do something right. 20 years ago, I was broken, drug addict, and everything else underneath the sun. 20 years from that, now I have to prove that I was worth something and I can do something right.
It's a day Tapp thought would never come, and his mother, Vera, has been praying every night for 20 years that her son would go free. Has it set in?
No.
Vera says this day would have never come had it not been for Carol, who has been fighting for nearly a decade for Chris's freedom.
I have my son. I can talk to my son. You know, I see my son. She doesn't have that option, you know, and it breaks my heart.
I'm happy for Chris. I'm saddened to think that he had to give 20 years of his life.
And tonight, for the first time in 20 years, Chris will have a steak dinner with his mother. He'll sleep in a room without bars. And tomorrow he'll wake up to a new life.
I'm grateful and thankful for everything that everybody's done. Overwhelmed still. And I gotta go find a job and become a pillar of the community and prove that everybody didn't waste their times, efforts, energy, love, prayers on me.
In Idaho.